Hi, this is Adolf here, and I'm a senior colorist. And today I'm going to talk about textures. So, what is our grading pipeline? We start with the negative. We start choosing negatives first. We break down the scenes using negative. If it is a night scene, we use 500T. If it is a day scene, we use 250D. So, me and the DP will sit together, we'll break down all the scenes and we'll use negative. Once the negative is applied to all the scenes, we'll decide to print it on film. 90% it is printed on Kodak 2383, which is a classic film stock. Then in between, we will grade using printer lights and color timing. We are doing this because we do not want an digital electronic image, but we need a nice analog celluloid chemical image. So grading is only 50%. After grading, we send it for texturizing in our other department. So what makes it special? Texturization makes it special. What is texturization? Now, some people think it is just grain. It is not just any grain. It is not just grain overlaid. The grain is always generated by the content of the frame. But before this, let me give you a quick history of film and the film structure. So you have the film base. Below the film base is anti-halation backing. Now that anti-halation layer is called remjet and it is removed before developing the film. Above the film base, there is a subbing layer. Now above the subbing layer, there are three layers C, M, Y, which are emulsion layers. The grain is mostly found in this emulsion layers. So grain has to be colored. It is generated in the emulsion layers. There is a UV absorbing layer. There is a yellow filter. There is a supercoat layer. So this is quickly the film structure. So what is the film base made up of? Initially, it used to be made of cellulose nitrate. The film base now is made up of cellulose acetate, and the print is always made up of polyester because it is the strongest layer. So the number one component of the film are the silver halide crystals. Without these crystals, the film will not be developed. Now, I am not going to go deeper into the science of how film is made and everything. I only want to focus on the creative aspects. There are some amazing stuff on net you can research and find out. So, according to me, the number one texturing factor is grain. Video is noise and film is grain. Now, in US, there is a company which is a big company which does real-time texture mapping, and it costs thousands of dollars for just texture mapping real time. So we got inspired by that process and we started it here at a mini level where we can provide texturing facilities for filmmakers, for indie filmmakers, for theatrical filmmakers, for short films and everything. Usually what really counts in the texturing process is the weaver, flicker, grain, halation, MTF, diffusion. Let me talk about grain, MTF, and other factors. Let me talk about MTF first. So the old lens loses a bit of high frequency around the edges. There is a small artifact. So that is why filmmakers use that with ARRI cameras so that they can replicate and they can get that beautiful MTF effect. If they cannot get it, if they do not use those lenses which has MTF, we recreate the MTF here. We have film aesthetics and we recreate the MTF here in the texturing department. What is grain? Now, grain is dependent on the content of the frame. Grain is generated according to the content of the frame. I usually do not like overlaying grain because overlaying grain doesn't gel into the image, doesn't merge. So generating the grain using the content of the image is what I always prefer instead of overlaying the grains. Now there are two type of grains. One is negative grain, one is positive grain. So you have to choose where do you have to apply the grain. Usually we apply it at a negative level. Now grain is generated in an image because of certain amount of light falling on the image. Silver halide react to the light and by reacting they generate the grain. Now the grain is not even at all parts of the image. Grain is very different at shadows, midtones and highlights. So grain are basically formed in the emulsion layers, right? And that is why they have to be colored. That is why I prefer color grains in texturing instead of black and white overlays. Film grain is generated using the subtractive processes in the negative, so I prefer the grain to be negative. So where will you find the grains mostly? You will find the grains in shadows, midtones, and highlights. And in those shadows, midtone, highlight, there are various parameters. Now, some of the parameters are like shadow low, shadow high, softness low, softness high, shadow gain. You will find the same parameters in midtones and highlights. The most common grain profile that I love is 35 mm 400T. There is also another very good profile which is called 35 mm Vision 3 500T 5219. Grain is primarily what texture is. Apart from grain, what factors make up texture is there is halation, there is MTF, there is flicker, there is weaver, there is bloom, there is gate weaver, there is film breath, there is flicker. So all of this add to texturization process. You can control the level of textures you want in your film. Textures give your film a very beautiful look. There is a slight flicker which your eyes cannot catch, and this I learned from Walter Volpato, the legendary colorist. There's a slight flicker, there is a slight camera shake, which is there but not there. Your eyes can feel it. There is gate view, there is film breath, and there is flicker, which is at a very minimal amount added on while texturing. Now, this is what I learned from Walter Volpato and Dado. These little things make your film special, make your film look different, and it stands out. So, I'm going to give you examples of bloom, halation, flicker, film damage, crane, gate view, film breath, bloom, MTF, vignetting, so that you can see it yourself how beautiful it looks. So we are not getting into the science of it, but I'm just going to show you texturing process for a short film, indie film, and we are going to discuss in detail at length about the texturing of a feature theatrical film. Now, I do not want you to get confused between camera and lens artifacts and the texture. Camera and lens artifacts are different and textures are different. I'm going to show you some examples of textures, and I'm going to also show you some diagrams of camera and lens artifacts. So what are these camera and lens artifacts? These are scratches, dirt, debris, and dropouts. Some people consider film view as a camera artifact, but for me, it comes in texture as it has a visual aesthetic value. Some people consider halation, glow, glint, glare as artifacts. Mostly VFX guys need this for integration with CG and live action. Sometimes there are lens flares and sometimes color shifting does happen. Distortion is also considered as an artifact sometimes, and it is removed. VFX is done and it is on later on added. I'm going to talk about it deeper when I'm going to talk about integrating CGI and live action and how to integrate both of them and make them look seamless. When we talk about grading for VFX or integrating CGI and live action in grade when you get different passes. Thank you so much for your time, and this was a brief overview of texturing process for feature film, web series, short film, indie films, and I think you should not skip it. You should pick up what film aesthetics you like and then put it in your film. It is not mandatory to use all of these, but you can pick up what you like and you can use it. It gives beautiful result. Thank you so much for watching, and there is more coming. Thank you.